Okay, let's get into audience questions for the week. One that is increasingly coming up in different forms is this question of Donald Trump and the federal government versus states when it comes to shelter in place, stay at home orders, and shutting down versus reopening the economy. And the question, as it was received today from Mark, was, hey, David, if Donald Trump wants to reopen the economy before state governors are willing to, is there any way Trump can overrule a governor's stay at home order? I did a bunch of research on this, and the answer to me strikes me as no from all the legal opinions that I've read about this. So Trump can do what he wants federally. He can say we're going to extend the guidelines to April 30th, as he did last week on his Sunday press conference. And when it comes to federal employees, Trump has certain authority. When it comes to international air travel, it doesn't appear as though, for example, if Trump bans travel from China to the U.S., it doesn't appear as though Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker could say, no, 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 we're going to allow planes from China to land at Boston's Logan Airport. Doesn't seem to be the case. Trump's designation sort of rules or supersedes whatever a local governor might want to do there. Of course, you've got the FAA regulating air travel as a federal agency, but I think you sort of get the point. Governors do not work for the federal government nor for Donald Trump. They are administrators of their state, and we have states' rights here. So if Donald Trump says everybody's got to get back to work, and Charlie Baker here or Andrew Cuomo or Gavin Newsom or whoever says, no, we're not going to do that, it might seem as though there's a very significant conflict there, and it might sort of become a fight. Now, the reality is that these shelter in place orders are not really being enforced significantly by police at this point, other than in some cases where there have been, big gatherings that police broke up and arrested people. For the most part, and in Massachusetts, we have experience from the Boston Marathon bombing when there was a shelter in place, when the bombers were on the loose. These are basically things that are followed by people, not at the end of a barrel of a gun, so to speak. And in that same way, I believe that there is not really any way for the federal government to come in and do the opposite and say, you've got to go to work now. And I'm pretty confident in Massachusetts, if Trump said, let's let it rip, and Charlie Baker says, let's not, that it's not even going to be an issue, that people are simply going to do what Charlie Baker says. Now, the most likely outcome from a legal perspective, if the Trump administration wanted to push it, imagine that federally Trump lifts the guidelines and governors say, we're going to keep doing our thing and we're keeping things closed. The federal government could sue a state. That happens. There are lawsuits between federal and state governments very, regularly. And the litigation would take a very, very long time, likely longer than the coronavirus shutdown would last in any of these states. And in the meantime, states would remain closed. There's one other element I want to talk about. The 10th Amendment has an anti-commandeering interpretation, which prevents the federal government from having local police enforce federal laws. So, for example, when California decriminalizes or legalizes marijuana, it's illegal federally. The federal government doesn't tell, Santa Monica police to go enforce the federal illegality of marijuana. They send in the DEA or the ATF or whoever it is that they send in, federal agencies. In the same way, National Guards are administered at the state. Who is it that the federal government would send in to enforce at the state level that the federal government wants things reopened? Hard to imagine. So on a practical level, I believe governors would have the upper hand if they decide to keep things closed. On a legal level, it could be a fight. It's a fight that legally could take years and would long outlast the actual likely durations of these stay-at-home orders, shelter in place, non-essential business shutdown sort of thing. That's my best estimate. Now, one other thing to mention. I read one take online that said, no, the federal government could enforce that businesses must open under the Commerce Clause. I found no serious legal analyst that was willing to make that case, and it strikes me as pretty bogus. But if you disagree, if you believe that there is a way that the federal government could enforce an open everything order, even if a governor doesn't want to, let me know. I don't see it. I haven't found a single credible legal expert that sees it that way.